Hello everyone, I'm FARMERSIM and welcome to the second installment in my guide to Courseplay. In this video we will be activating Courseplay's expert mode, but before we do that, I did briefly mention it in the last episode. One of the settings that you do have in the basic settings is the combine self-unload function. So I'd like to very relatively briefly demonstrate that to you and show you how pretty easy it is to make work. So if we bring up the menus, jump into the vehicle section, the Courseplay vehicle menu here, combine settings, combine self unload, click on activate, and let's get it into the field. And what I'm going to do, let's just unfold everything here. Let's pop ourselves into this view for a bit of ease, shall we? So we still have the same course activated that we had in the last episode. So if we bring ourselves up to the first waypoint, bring up the menu, and send it on its way. There we go. So it'll take a few minutes for it to get to almost full. During that time, I shall bring the tractor and trailer just up to the edge of the field here. It doesn't have to be in the field, it can be relatively close to it as well. So we'll get that set up and I'll pick you back up in a few minutes when the combine's almost full. Okay, so here we are, back with the combine. It is almost very nearly at its... there we go, right on cue. So, with the combine self-unload feature activated, as you'll see, it has got to 99% full. Now it should... there we go. We do have the AI helper fruit destruction deactivated, so the Courseplay helper should... it is running it quite close, I must admit, but it shouldn't run through the crop, as it were. It should find a path around the edge of the field where there is no crop. As I said before, it's very clever like that. So, it is now detected where the trailer is, and is making its way all by itself to the trailer. So we shall just watch it on its way. It should, he says. Admittedly, there's not a huge amount of space for it to turn around, but it's because the auger of the combine is on its left-hand side. It should, here we go, work its way out. It might do a reverse thing here, perhaps. There we go. Now, because the very edge of the field is on a very slight angle, there's a possibility that the auger might not reach straight into the... oh, no, it has. Okay. No, there we go. As you can see, visually it's not quite 100%, and that, I believe, is because if you look at the lay of the land, as it were, it's obviously sloping to our right. But the main thing is it's doing its job. It's doing what it's meant to do. So, the combine is, as you see, self-unloading. It'll empty itself, and it should find its way back to its last waypoint and crack on. Now, there's essentially two ways you can do this. You can manage the transport of the grain trailer yourself, obviously, and take it back into your silo or to your wherever you're taking it by yourself, or you can employ the help of Autodrive. Now, that's something that we're going to be doing in a future episode. Obviously, I'm going to run through Courseplay. I'm not too sure exactly at the minute how many more videos there will be on Courseplay. There will probably be another one after... in fact, there will be at least maybe 1 or 2 videos after this one. Yeah, as you can see there, the combine is making its way back to where it stopped. I'll just quickly run through that on screen here so you can see it in action. It is extremely clever. Okay, so there we go. That's cracking on. Excellent stuff. So, yes, forgive me. As I said, yes, there's essentially two ways you can manage the grain cart. You can have it running on an auto drive, in which case there will be an auto drive worker in there at the minute waiting for the trailer to be completely full, and then Once it is full, it will take itself to whichever silo or sell point or tip point you've told it to tip at. Or you can do it yourself, which obviously at the minute, with no auto drive running here, that's what we would be expected to do. So obviously when your trailer gets to 100%, you can go wherever you want to go with it. Now, that's essentially that for the combine self-unload part. It's pretty self-explanatory, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. So, now we've demonstrated that. In fact, what we'll do is we shall just... In fact, no, I'll let this run its course for now. What I wanted to show you next, something that I did very briefly touch on in the last episode. When we jump into the settings, the vehicle settings here, as I said, we're in a combine harvester, so we have the combine settings here. When you jump into a vehicle, a tractor that has a planter or a seeder attached to it, which we will do now. Here we are. We have, this is Carl Farm's beautiful case quad track, the 620 in this case, and Custom Modding's awesome early rise, one of their early riser planters, which has seed and fertilizer hoppers on. So when you jump into this vehicle and you jump back into the Courseplay settings, we now have seeder settings, obviously, as opposed to combine settings. Now, with us still having the expert mode still deactivated, you are only met with this particular option: sowing machines use fertilizer. Now, at the minute, we have this deactivated. So what that means is the Courseplay worker that we'll be using in this vehicle will not expect there to be fertilizer in the sowing machine, essentially. If you have that activated, voila. As you can see there in the bottom right, you have we have fertilizer and seed in the hoppers. When you have it activated, it will expect there to be fertilizer in the hopper. If there isn't, and this setting is activated, the driver will just sit there and wait for that hopper to be full. If you have it deactivated, quite simply, it won't use the fertilizer, or it won't expect fertilizer to be there. If your hopper still has fertilizer in it, and this setting is deactivated, it won't use the fertilizer. So, essentially that's that. When you have the expert mode activated, the other option that appears in this seeder settings section here is the option to use the, in fact, let's just do it, the ridge markers. So if we activate expert mode, go back into the vehicle settings there, seeder settings, ridge markers, you can activate or deactivate ridge markers if the particular tool you are running has them and you like to use them, quite simply. So that's that. Right, so let's go back and meet the combine, because now that it's doing what it's doing, and we have obviously I've demonstrated the combine self-unload function. Now we are going to activate expert mode, pretty much. And for the purposes of the first bit of the demonstration for expert mode, I'm going to stick with the combine, because one of the things you can do, as you can see, this is still a course that was set up in the basic mode. Now, admittedly, I know it's not a lot, but it has missed some bits of crop here on the outer edge of the headlands. Now, that is because this corner in particular is set to smooth, because it is a smooth shape to the field. The outer edge of the header, in this case it's the left-hand side, because we're running it in a clockwise direction. The outer edge of the header has essentially a little bit more distance to travel. So, and also along the left-hand side of the field, the very outer edge here, again, admittedly, I know it's not a lot, but it has missed a couple of pieces here. Now, it's been fine here in the corners here, in the sharp corners, because they're running sharp corners, so it pretty much gets it 100% because of the way it behaves on a sharp corner. But because of the different shapes of the field that you can come across in this game, varying shapes and sizes, as it were, especially this field that we're in here is rather an odd shape, so it does have a combination of sharp corners and smooth edges and stuff. There is always a chance that you can miss bits from the edges of the field and the outer edges of the headlands. So, I'm going to get everything set back up again now, and we're going to activate expert mode. Right, okay. Back to square one, as it were. I have removed that temporary course from the brain of the combine. As you can see there in the Courseplay HUD here, we have no course activated. I've reset the field, so we can start again from scratch. So let's jump into the settings menu again, the global settings here, and let's activate expert mode. So initially, still staying in this menu, what you are met with is, in this section here, you are met with two extra settings here. You are met with shows all active courses. Now at the minute, I tend to have this deactivated. Again, this can be down to personal preference, but essentially this shows all your active courses on the in-game map in the PDA. So if we were running multiple courses at the same time, we had a planter in one field, a harvester in another, a plough in another, and you went into your PDA, you would see each of the courses overlaid onto each of those particular fields running at the same time. Again, that's just personal preference. And the other section you are met with is the player mouse event. You can activate or deactivate that. Honestly, never really noticed what that is, if I'm honest. I've never changed that. I have never done anything with that, so that's just exactly what it is there. Now, the other section you are given is Pathfinder settings, the angle difference at goal and the delta angle relax factor. Honestly, never had to touch these either. I've used, as I've mentioned in the last video, I've used Courseplay since the day it was released for FS22, and I used it for quite a long time back in FS19. I've never had to alter these settings, ever. Now, if any of you are out there who know more than I do and who understand what these do and what benefit they can bring, then please hit me up in the comments. I've never had to change them, and I've never had a problem. So for the purposes of not adding too much confusion and detail into this guide, I'm just going to leave those as they are. So now we have expert mode activated. We jump into the vehicle specific setting there for the combine harvester. We're met with a couple, I think it's just one more that we've got here. Menu, the unload on first headland. So quite simply, the combine will call the unloader on the first headland, or if you have the automatic unload setting activated, it will unload itself on the first headland, essentially. So that's pretty much that. You also have you can also alter the speed settings of the vehicle for its behavior during field work, on the field in general, whether it's running a course or just moving around on the field. Its turn behavior, speed, its reversing speed, and the speed that, well, I suppose the combine wouldn't really be driving up to a silo, but you can alter that speed if you needed to. Again, I've never had to affect or change these settings here. So this is what expert mode gives you. Quite a lot of customization, but initially, for the purposes of this video, and I can also, as I say, speak to my own experience with this mod, I've never had to alter these things ever. So, but the main thing is, when we jump into the active worker menu, let's go to create job. Now, if you remember, the very first time you activate Courseplay, you are met with this one. As you can see there, when we hit create job, it brought us straight into the Courseplay section because it remembered the setting from the previous time we were here. So anyway, right. So if we go to open and close the course generator, like that, there we go. Now, most of these settings are the same. As you can see, it has remembered the settings that we had from the previous course we created. So we have a work width of 12 meters, the header. We're running one tool. We're going to run two headlands. We're going to start work on the headlands again. The headland corners are sharp because we have a couple of sharp corners in this field. Direction clockwise. Now, the headland overlap. This is a section that wasn't there before. By default, it is set to 7%. Now, if you remember that we missed, as I quickly showed you as I was walking around the field before, we had missed a slight section on the left-hand side of the header. Now, if we were to increase this, say to 10%, what that essentially means is that in respect of the headlands, it will overlap each headland by 10% of the width of the particular tool you are using. So in this case, it'll be 10% of 12 meters. So essentially what that means is each headland will be 10% shifted over to the left-hand side because we're running clockwise. So it'll be 10% shifted over to the left-hand side. So what that means is it reduces its chances of missing that very tiny piece of the left-hand side of a, especially on the corners. It's not going to be too much when it's not going to be too much of a problem when you're running in a straight line, but on the corners, you will have that 10% overlap, so you can reduce the chances of getting missed bits of crops. Now, I appreciate that in this particular field, there was only a couple of stalks of the wheat that we'd missed, but and it's all down to also the particulars of the field you're working in. In particular, it's more prominent on a much sharper corner. For example, this corner down here, which has a much sharper turn on it, there's much more of a chance of missing a larger piece of crop on the outer left-hand side of the header because of the fact it is a sharper corner. So you can increase this up to 25%. That's the maximum you can go to. Now, generally as a rule, in my experience and the way I've always ran Courseplay, I have always just used a 25% headland overlap. Essentially what this means is each headland will be a quarter of the width of the header overlapped. So because that's its maximum, look, you can't go any further than 25%. That just gives you the optimum chance of missing as little as possible, if that makes any sense. I do hope that does make a little bit of sense. So for the demonstration purposes of this video, of this section here, I'm going to leave that at 25% just to show you that I'm going to eat my words now if it doesn't work, but it should work. That when we run the same course but with this headland overlap, we should have no missed pieces here that we did, and hopefully we should have a hopefully zero, but there may well still be a small amount here in this bottom corner that still gets missed. Courseplay is very clever, and it is obviously it's as good as it can be, but it can't necessarily get 100% of the crop 100% of the time in any field, because there are so many varying shapes and sizes of field in this game. It does its best, but we'll have a look at we'll have a look at this corner in particular when we get it running. So that's the headland overlap. I do hope I've babbled enough a bit of sense about what that does. So these sections are still the same. Now what we have here, in the advanced section, we had the island bypass mode in the basic settings, but what we also have here is field margin. Now, if I jump very quickly out of here again, the field margin essentially relates to the edge of the field. Now, if you remember, in this field in particular, we only had a very small amount, a couple of missed stalks along the outer edge of the field. So, in the field margin section, let's just jump back into the combine, jump back into the create job. There we go, open the generator. Right, field margin. If we run this into negative figures, and it does it in very small increments, 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, what that means is if you run it into negative figures, and I'll jump back into this menu here. If you imagine the white line here around the edge of the field, this is 0. If we run it into negative figures, if you watch my mouse cursor, negative figures essentially means it will bring the white line, an imaginary white line, further out. So it will increase the size of the field, therefore increasing the chances that it will get every single bit of crop around the outside of the field. Again, I hope that's making sense. If you add it into plus figures, it will go this way. Negative figures, it will go this way. So you don't need to go, and this is going to be particular to the field you're working in. So again, if you have, this is where you're going to have to use your own judgment. So if you have a fence, for example, that runs all the way around, or even a slight way around the outer edge of the field you're working in, and it's particularly close to the outer edge of the field, you may want to keep that field margin section to 0. Obviously, in the field we're in here, we have very little obstacles around the outside of the field, so we can afford to increase that field margin to something like 0.4. 0.4 is pretty much as far as I've ever had to go with it, increasing to make sure that we get every single bit of crop around the outer edge of the field. Now, don't get me wrong, we didn't miss a lot in this field in particular, but if you're like me and you want to be as thorough as possible, you can play with this essentially, as I say, and it's all down to the particulars of the field you're working in. So that has to be down to your discretion and your judgment as to what field you're working in, as to whether there are anything around the outside of the field that could, for example, obviously if we were to increase this to 0.8, which would bring the left-hand edge of the combine header quite far out over this white line, and there are trees and or fences or any other obstacles around the field, the combine's going to bump into it and it's going to cause you problems. So, for the purposes of this demonstration, and to show you, hopefully, that when it's running the headlands, it should now pick up as much as possible, because we have a 25% headland overlap and a field margin of minus 0.4. So, let's generate that fieldwork course. There we go. And as you can see, it's pretty much done everything in the same. It kind of looks exactly the same, doesn't it, from up here? If we come out of here, yeah, the way the field is set up looks almost identical. But we've made those small changes, those incremental changes with expert mode. So let's jump back out of here. Let's line the combine up a little bit better. As you'll see there, this is where we started before. So the left-hand edge of the combine is almost perfectly lined up with the edge of the field. But if you look at where the center point of the course is, it's actually much further to the left-hand side of the combine. So, and this blue line, when the combine is running Courseplay, should be roughly central to the center line of the combine. So let's just, so that the combine doesn't muck around at the very beginning, let's line it back up a little bit better with the first waypoint. There we go. Let's get it going again. There we go. Now I'm going to stick with it just for a few moments, but as you'll see, now that we've set the field margin to a minus figure of 0.4, the left-hand edge of the combine is now sticking out over the edge of the field, therefore heavily reducing the chances of missing bits, especially on the corner. So we had a tiny little bit here that was missed. Boom, it's got it. Now that is, it did just get it. I appreciate that. So if we had increased that 0.4 to something like 0.6 or 0.8, that left-hand side of the combine would have absolutely definitely got every bit of the crop that was missed from that sharp corner there. But as it happens, 0.4 worked pretty well. Now it did miss a bit round here as well before. Hopefully this should now, there we go, get every single bit. Now it's missed a bit again there, hasn't it? So if we were going to be really particular about it, we would increase, we would now know that in this field in particular, now it's essentially, it is also down to the lay of the land, because this field has a very slight slope to it, that's heading to the right. The combine is essentially tilted a bit. So in an ideal world, now that we know it has missed that one piece of crop, we would increase that field margin to minus 0.6, and that should hopefully then get that bit as well. Now I appreciate it's, you know, it's neither here nor there. It's not going to make a difference. It's not going to make a world of difference to the, you know, the yield. We can come back and grab that bit if we needed to. It's a tiny bit of crop, I get that, but I know that there are a lot of people like me who play this game who enjoy a little bit of OCD. This game is great for exercising OCD. So if you want Courseplay to run a course and get 100% of the grain that's in the field, you now know that using the Courseplay expert mode and increasing the field margin to a minus figure of 0.6 in this case, or potentially 0.8, that will stand you in much better stead to pick up every single bit around the edge of the field. So, and the same principle works for other tools as well. Obviously we're demonstrating it with a combine harvester because it's really easy to see, because the bits that it's missed you literally see as unharvested crop. The same principle applies whether you're running a plough, a seeder or any other implement. Increasing the field margin to minus figures essentially steps the boundary of the field out in the direction that I'm sidestepping here. If you put it into plus figures, it does it this way. Now, you would do that, you would go the other way if, for example, the field you were in had a very close fence, for example, or obstacles that you're machine, combine, seeder, anything may risk bumping into. So you would increase the field margin to the right in that respect, or because we have a nice open field here, we increase it to the left. Okay, so I think that's the main brunt of the first step of the expert mode enabled. That's essentially, that's what it brings to the game. It brings you a much bigger variety of settings so you can fine-tune how the vehicles behave in the field. Right, I've picked us back up here in the bottom corner of this field, this sharp corner that I was highlighting in the bottom right of the field if we were looking at it from the PDA. Now this is quite an odd shape, with it having quite a sticky out bit, I suppose you could call it. Where the headlands behave, there is a possibility that there may well be some missed crop in this area. So I've just picked up the filming here very quickly just to show you where it's at here. And at some point very soon I will pick it back up when it performs its second headland, because you see how it's run very, very wide there. I just wanted to show you there's a possibility that when we've run the second headland, there may be some missed crop there. There may not, but there may well be. And if there is some missed crop, it's just a good demonstration to show you that Courseplay can't always get every bit of the crop. But as I say, we'll pick it back up in a moment when it's back round there. And I'll also pick it back up when it's round here, just to make sure that we've picked up every bit of crop from the outside edge of the second headland. Okay, so approaching the corner on the second headland, as you can see there, it has got every single bit of the crop. We have no missed crop on the outer edge of that the inner headland. But now that we've done the outer headland, this is a great example to show you the 25% headland overlap, or whatever percentage you have. So that bit there, where there is no crop to harvest, that's the 25% overlap. So that's essentially a quarter of the header. And the principle runs the same for whatever implement you may be running. That headland overlap is a percentage of the width of the machine implement that you're running. And obviously, as I said earlier, that's kind of down to your discretion and what you judge to be an acceptable headland overlap for the particular field you're running, whether it be a big wide open unobstructed field perimeter like this one, or something pretty tight and relatively obstructed like something on Calmsden Farm or Court Farms, for example, where the fields are much smaller and there's a lot more things going on around the outer edges. So I shall pick us back up again in a matter of moments when we are back over here at this corner, where hopefully it will get everything. But as I say, there's a small percentage chance that it might still miss a few bits, but we'll see when we get there. Right, approaching this corner again, it actually seems like Courseplay may well actually be running at its absolute best here. I think it is going to get every single bit of crop, because this particular corner is still considered sharp, highlighted by that red dot. Should reverse itself here. It might miss this. Well, no, I suppose it won't because of the 25% headland overlap. It should possibly be okay. Yep, looks like it is. Oh, excellent. Okay, right. Courseplay running at its best, everybody. So, now that we have covered the headlands and its behaviour in the headlands with using the varying percentage of headland overlap, I'm going to let this combine run the entire field. Now, all the other settings that we had regarding its behaviour in the up and down rows should still remain exactly the same. So now that the headlands have been pretty much done, apart from this corner up here, which again it will behave the same way, I'm now almost 100% confident that when the field has been done, every single piece of crop will have been picked out of the field. So I'll let this thing run the course completely, and I'll pick you back up when it's finished, and we will have a quick jog around the field to make sure that there are no missed pieces. Right, so Courseplay is coming up to the end of this particular course, so we'll let it get right to the very finish point. There we go. Now what it will do, because it has come to the finish point, the driver will automatically extend the auger and wait for either you or Autodrive to come and empty it. But what we can do is just quickly, if we press stop, there we go, it's come to a stop. So, as we can see, it has done very, very well. It has picked up every single piece of crop, apart from that bit, which is quite frustrating. It would have been 100% perfect had it not been for that, so that can be counteracted by, in this case, in this particular field, increasing the field margin to another couple of stages, so maybe 0.6. 0.6 would probably have got it, but 0.8 would definitely get it, and that is because of just the lay of the land here. But aside from that, it has literally got every single bit. So that just goes to show you that just using some of the fine-tuned settings in expert mode of Courseplay can really get you to, you know, a proper job, as it were. Every single area in the corner here has been got. Every single bit all around the edges, apart from that one tiny bit over there. So that was a bit frustrating, but it just shows you that Courseplay can do a very, very good job once you've set it right. So let's jump back to the combine very quickly. Now, one thing let's just remove the visible waypoints. Another tiny little thing that I forgot to mention in the last video regarding just one of the buttons on the hood is this little button here. Now, instead, you can unload a course. If you go to the course manager section here, you can clear the current course by clicking that. But that button there also clears the current course that you have set to the vehicle that you are in. Right, so I'm going to leave the combine alone for now. We're going to run over to the planter that we have set up ready to plant some corn in the field there that's empty. So let's just turn that off for now. We'll get ourselves over to the planter, and I'm going to show you a couple more little things that you can do regarding plotting the courses. And I'm also going to show you a couple of other options that we very briefly glossed over in the last episode. Right, we're in the planter. So now I'm going to show you in the course plotting menu how you can plot a course while your vehicle is not on a field. So, as you can see from the menu here, we're in the quad track. It's not in a field, it's parked on the lane here. We're going to plot a course into field number 1 here to plant some corn. So if we go to create job, and again, because we haven't done any Courseplay plotting in this vehicle yet, it's brought us to the standard section here for field work. So if we click to the right, Courseplay field work, as it says there, target is not on a field. Now, that's what these sections are for here, these two in particular, the target position and the field position. So, what we're going to do, we first click on target position, left click with your mouse, and that brings up this little arrow icon here. So what you want to do is click that somewhere where you want the start of your course to begin. In this case, we're just going to do it to the right of the, well, it's to the left on the PDA here, but to the right of the tractor. So left click once, and as you can see, you can now rotate the arrow direction. I always prefer running clockwise courses, so we're going to bring it there, left click again, so that's the direction that the Courseplay course is going to set off in. Field position, this essentially gets rid of this message. So you can click anywhere in the field. So you click there, you can click anywhere. So if you click, bang, there you go. Courseplay has determined this is the field we want to work in, which is absolutely fine. So now we go into the open close course generator box. There we go. And we are now met with the similar settings that we had, with the combine. So we have a work width of 12.2 meters. We're running one tool. In this case, we're going to run 2 headlands again, because I think that should be enough. Actually, no, we're going to run 3. We'll run 3 headlands. We're going to start work this time on the field center. So we change headland to center there. The headland corners. Now, in this field, we have... Now, I personally believe that Courseplay is going to recognize this corner here as a sharp corner, this corner here as a sharp corner, and possibly these 2 down here as well. Everything else looks to be smooth. So, headland corners. We change that to sharp again. Headland direction clockwise, yep. We're going to do what I always tend to do, is run this at 25%. Now, what you can do, you can click left and right, or if you click in the box on the number, you can just input and press enter, headland overlap 25%. So that's what we're going to do. Now then, what we didn't alter when we were in the combine harvester is the up and down row direction. The field center we're still going to keep was up and down rows, but the up and down row direction, there's a few options we can do here. So automatic just leaves it down to Courseplay to manually plot the direction of your up and down rows. Now, if you click on longest edge, that will direct the up and down rows dependent on the longest edge of the particular field you're in. Now, I'm almost certain that this, if we do it, we'll plot this course with longest edge now, and it should run the up and down row directions essentially north to south, south to north. So we're going to skip one row. We don't need to alter that. We don't need to alter that. We don't need to alter that. And the field margin, again, we're going to pop this to 0.4 again, as we did with the combine harvester. So let's generate the fieldwork course there. This might take a few moments. It does take a few seconds sometimes, depending on how large or small your field is. This one does seem to be taking a few seconds. Right, the course has been generated. That took about 10-15 seconds, I think, to do. So it's not too bad. The bigger the field, the more complicated the field, the longer it will take to generate. I have had experiences in the past working on really, really big fields where it can take upwards of sometimes more than a few minutes to generate the course, depending on how complicated it might be. But as you can see, yeah, we've gone with longest edge, and it has, as I thought, it has plotted the up and down rows in the general direction of the longest edge of the field, which I think it is calculating as this left-hand edge here. If we were then to go to manual, up and down row direction, what manual does is essentially plots the up and down row direction based on an exact north to south direction. So if we change that to manual, click on generate field course again. Right, course generated again. It took a few seconds less than it did before, but again, a little bit too long just to be sitting here on the video, so I just split it into 2 there. But as you can see, the up and down row directions are exactly north to south. When we did longest edge, they had a very, very slight angle on them, because the longest edge of this field here has a very slight direction from left to right. So these are now perfectly north to south, which for the purposes of this I'm going to keep, because it should look pretty neat and tidy. So everything is as we want it to be. The work width, we have one tool. We're going to run 3 headlands. We're going to start on the center this time and finish on the headlands. We have sharp corners, clockwise direction, a 25% headland overlap, and a 0.4 field margin. So we can drop out of here. There we go. Now let's bring up all of the waypoints. We're going to click on start on first waypoint. There we go. So let's get the tractor over to the first waypoint. There we go. Somewhere near is about right there. Okay, so Let's click on play, or go. The animations of this particular mod are brilliant, they really are. The early riser planter. Right, and it's off. So, I'm going to let this run its course, and I shall pick you all back up when it's done, and hopefully... Can't actually see a thing due to the level of the dust kicking up from that thing, can we? But yeah, when it's done, I should now be able to show you a fully planted field with hopefully 0 missed bits, I hope. Right, so I shall see you in a short while. Now then, that's the courseplay finished in this field. I suppose for the purposes of this video I should have picked a smaller field because that's just taken about an hour and 20 minutes, but hey ho, it's all done now. So, unfortunately, now this is always the case with courseplay, there are a couple of bits that it has missed. Now I'm going to jump into the construction menu because if I jump out of the tractor, the waypoints, even though they're visible when you're in the tractor, they disappear when you jump out. So, but if I jump into construction mode, they stay there. So, actually, first of all, forgive me, we'll do it in the PDA. So, obviously the green is relating to the crop that we've just planted. All the green is the growing bits, but very slightly you can see just a couple of tiny pieces. There's a blue bit there, there's a blue bit there, and if we go down to here as well, there's a reasonable sized section there and another little bit there. Now this bit did surprise me, if I'm honest. So if we jump into the construction menu, I'll go down to the bottom of this field here where that bit in particular was. There. Now I'd have placed money on courseplay considering this piece here to be a sharp corner. And this bit here as well. But as you can see, the way that it's plotted the course, it's given it a smooth corner. So, courseplay has done what it was told to do. It's followed a smooth corner, and as you can see, the planter has followed around this edge, and it has missed this bit entirely here. Now, it's not the end of the world, I appreciate that, but, and when the courseplay course has run its course, quite literally, you're free to essentially jump in it and bring the vehicle and the planter over here and just run the planter very quickly over here and over here, making sure that every little single bit has been planted. But yeah, that did surprise me, if I'm honest. But this is what you find with courseplay. Every now and again, there will be the odd little bit that won't quite add up. So those are the two corners there that were missed, and there was a bit at the top, up here. I think it was just there. Again, because this has called itself a smooth corner. Because the planter was a drag behind planter, it's kind of it's followed the line of the towing tractor, and it's just very slightly missed that tiny little bit. It's not the end of the world, of course. And again at this end as well. So, if you wanted to be 100%, you'd now jump in the tractor, just stick everything down on the ground, switch it on, and pull it around these few bits that have been missed. Now, I guess there was also an option that you can counteract that by increasing the field margin by a considerable amount to make sure that those pieces have been got. But again, the amount that you'd have to increase it by, personally, I'd have said as we did with the combine before, we had it set to 0.4. You'd have to increase that to well north of minus 0.8 in order to try your very best to get these missed bits. As it happens, this is how it's behaved in this instance. So, but generally as a rule, aside from that, jumping into the PDA, considering the size of the field, it's done a very good job. All the up and down rows, the ends of the up and down rows have all been planted. There we go. So it's all pretty good, if you ask me. So, again, we'll bring up the menus when you want to remove the course. Click on that icon, and there we go. So, I think, based on what I believe the length of this video is going to be, I think I'm going to call it there for today, for this video. I'll just take this tractor back over here for now. Now, in the next episode, episode 3, I am going to cover saving courses. So every individual course you can make with whatever tool you have, you can save it so you can come back to it again. The only thing that does stop the need from doing is having to create each course as you pull a tractor into the field. So you don't have to save the courses, but at the same time, I quite like doing it, if I'm honest. It's nice to have a little a folder, so to speak, of all the individual courses that you've made, so you can essentially get back into your vehicle and set it on its way without having to plot the course. And the other added benefit, that depending on how you play, once we get into the world of Autodrive and combining both Autodrive and Courseplay to work in harmony together, what you can do, if I had a full Autodrive network set up on this map, and for example, I wanted to send this tractor from here back to the field that we've just planted. Let's pretend that field hadn't just been planted and it was ready to be drilled, but I had an Autodrive network that had that field included in the network. I could load up a course that we've saved, the one that we've just done, for example, send it via Autodrive from here, just get in it, Autodrive, send it to that field, and also activate that Courseplay course at the same time. So all I'd need to do is click one button, jump out, and the tractor would take itself from here along the Autodrive network, wherever that might send it, into the field here, and then automatically start the Courseplay course until it's done. So the combination of the two are an extremely powerful tool, I find. I absolutely love combining the two together. No pun intended there with the word combine. But yes, that is something we are going to go through in another video. Not necessarily in the next video, though, because I feel that the correct order for me to do things would be to go through what I can with as much of Courseplay as possible, and I think that may well conclude in the next episode. In the next episode, I plan on, as I say, I'm going to go through how to save a course into the course manager section, how to create a custom field. So, say for example, let's pretend we were on no man's land, a map that has no fields in it whatsoever. We can map out a field using the Courseplay's custom field section, and go from there. So I'm going to show you how to do that in the next episode. And one of my favourite parts of Courseplay that we will also cover in the next episode is using multiple machines. I absolutely love getting those going. So again, we will probably do it on a different map, just so I can highlight using multiple machines better. We probably could do, this field isn't probably more than big enough to run a couple of tools. That's to be decided. Leave that with me. We might be on a different map. We might still be here on Alma, Missouri. We shall see. I quite like the idea of demonstrating multiple machines, though, using the full 5 combine, but we shall see. So that's going to be in the next episode, and then I feel the correct order in which to do things would then be to introduce Autodrive into the guide to videos, run a couple of videos on how to set up Autodrive and how to do that properly, and then finish off with combining the two together, an Autodrive and a Courseplay video, running the two together. That might be manageable in one video, perhaps, but we shall see. I'll figure out the best way of putting those together. So, anyway, like I said, I'm going to call it here for this tutorial video. I do hope you have all found this even remotely interesting and informative. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, everybody, and I shall see you in the 3rd installment of my Courseplay Guide 2.